So did you take a look at that? I know I posted on Facebook. Did you take a look at that article on PC Gamer the Holocaust, video games, the Holocaust one?
I read your
little blurb.
Blurb on it.
Right, so, but I gotta tell you the story. So I got contacted by PC Gamer. So first of all, the guy had posted on Twitter looking for Jewish game developers, which I was surprised nobody was like, so I got volunteered by my boss. So
damn.
I started talking to them. We had this whole discussion. It's only one paragraph quote from me, but I said to him, you know, you really need to talk to. You really need to talk to Bethesda and Ubisoft.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Far Cry 5 guys and Wolfenstein 2 guys. I arranged all that.
Speakers on this guy are just not particularly good.
Comes back to me on Monday. So, comes back to
Which
me on Monday.
speakers did you use?
Cut it down. I didn't use those guys.
Hold on.
I wanted
What
input. He's
microphone
not
are you
just
using?
he's from the UK, but I wanted the input from people that had
Okay, this turn this guy off.
skin in the mic.
Disable
which sounds
that.
terrible in that context, but,
Yeah, we should probably use
but
this.
that was pretty fun. And a lot of the people on there
It does, yeah.
had some pretty interesting.
Yeah, so you can see these little lips on both sides. Oh, they're dotted with it. It's mine. So next time I could potentially bring my big microphone. Oh man. They're here with the tech. Yeah. I wonder how many people are going to watch the live stream. Probably none. This time. Next time, when they know it's here. Okay, hold on a second. All right, testing. 1, 2, 3.
I can hear you fine. Yeah.
This looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think it was really nice.
Yeah.
So, since you're
It's
first, do you want to just
it's muffled.
This is like half of
That's the bummer.
HDMI
This way we can bump it.
Well, we're still a little early. 10 minutes out, and people show up 5 minutes after it starts.
As always. It's okay, I'll be doing the presentation front, nobody misses what I have to say anyway.
Filters, going bump this up. Gain, probably.
Right, that's why the chair is there. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yep.
You're looking official. Presenting tonight? Yeah.
See if we blow anyone's ears
Yeah.
out. Testing. 1, 2, 3.
On the rest of us?
Yeah, I like your shirt.
Yeah, sure. I'll just use this guy.
You're all set with your laptop too, right, your Razer?
Yeah. So, it's a 2013. It's an old girl.
That seems okay, a little blurry.
Let's just slam it up here. See if we blow anyone's speakers out. Testing. 1, 2, 3. That's not bad. Should start a business and compete with Katie. No.
Did you know Shirley? No.
I met Curtis.
These are still documents.
There's like a little wall that started.
Yeah. Mine's one with 6 points.
I know, I leave for 3 months now, I got braces.
So this lighting here is pretty romantic.
Oh, yeah. It was there for lunch. I like it.
Yeah.
It's better than my family, my girls like it, so.
That's always good.
That's what they're happy with.
That's what I've heard.
I do a lot of.
Yeah.
Where did you work in the industry where
No, actually, that's kind of just like trying to figure out how to get it. It's like a very thinking way, so I looked for it and through just like not
Yeah.
talk to me.
It's what it was. A lot of us look up to this. It's
Oh,
really and if you know their people, and you have
We can have me whatever you want.
But the only requirement.
Well, my experience is in business and relationship with someone wanting to see my school. It's not bad.
No, it's still fun.
Yeah.
It didn't even turn out. All right, that should be fine.
Yeah, that looks not killing it.
It still looks kind of dim. Yeah, like vignettes.
It looks dark, like before it was turned on.
You know what's happening? It's because the projector is inside of the screen.
Yeah.
It's adjusting lighting automatically to make it easier to see.
I got some things like
I got things happen outside.
Yeah.
That's what's a major.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's
I don't know if I believe you. You keep making your own game engines.
I like.
I used to make game engines for actual games.
You need to learn, like, you need to go work for Unity, dude. Go fly to Unity.
I was actually looking at Game Maker. They're out in Scotland.
Go fly to Game Maker. You can be in Scotland. Yes.
I have to change my accent for that.
What's the Scottish accent like?
I don't know.
No, it's British. No,
That's British. That's British.
Okay, think of quick Braveheart.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, let's break apart. I can visualize it in my ears, but I can't. I can't reproduce it.
Really want Hello. How's it going?
It's actually, it's really interesting.
You guys can grab pizza if you'd like.
It's just because
We may gain a little bit more, how should I say, intimate than usual. There's a six month vacation. You're done losing that off
Ron, nice to meet
You want to speak?
First one?
Okay.
Yeah, so VR stuff.
Meetup group.
I'm gonna start a VR business in October. Very soon. It feels like very soon. It feels like this weekend to me. Yeah. Lots to do.
You're doing the location today?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. I think you changed it.
Yeah, you have fun.
Okay, cool. Alright, well, I'll have all the details later.
Great. Masters in Business Administration. You know, more going for game design stuff.
Go business. That's why you do business. Because everybody, and this is something I'm doing with my daughter and my girls. My wife and I are both entrepreneurs and we're teaching our girls how to do business. That's the one thing that if you go, you know, if you do psychology or if you do like in my case, if you do whatever, they never teach how to do business. That's the most important piece. It's the hardest piece. Yeah.
It's my lecture tomorrow, so don't get too far ahead.
Yeah, no, it's definitely Because like, right now it's all about trying to pick what's the best way to stand out. Especially as like a student in Michigan.
Sorry.
Anybody who's working in this industry and stay in this area. Because you have a lot of really talented people. You guys have an amazing development club. Lawrence Tech's in the area. Bumping out the whole CCS.
Yeah, right. So far, no one's able to do that, so I'm just like, both speakers.
Next phase.
Thank you.
No, that's.
I mean, I don't like it.
Yeah, so it's all about trying to figure it out. So right now I'm looking at like administration and that's I have a lot of actually.
I don't know, the world is just broken. With my Google Assistant, saying, where does Diane come from? It's like, I thought Google Assistant.
It'll be interesting.
How much longer do you have to school?
Yes.
I was supposed to finish off this year, but last year, there was no issue that I had capacity to finalize my program. So I have one more year left. And I'm another year. It's my third now. And then we'll actually be done. Yeah, no, so
Good.
I wasn't thinking about that.
What? No, like website for small jobs, or like remote jobs, temp jobs, and like contract jobs. Those are called for what jobs? There's a website called like an actual like alright. Okay. I use ZipRecruiter, Monster, Glassdoor. Like they're all like flexible jobs, like flexible schedules, working from home. It's like the main thing. Or not, I see something like, oh, you need like a C++ programmer to program Web32. I'm like, hey, other people don't even know how to do that anymore. Everything's all Yeah, I like I made big career mistakes in my last two jobs. I get in there and the problem is you're not in the right place. Yeah. Is that you think that's what it is? You should be at a AAA company working on their customers. So maybe working on a back end. Actually, it's just working with Microsoft Release or something like that. Elixir, Erlang, Microsoft Release, real-time back-end web. Didn't you say like JavaScript or Python was going to be completely obsolete at the last party? Did you say Elixir was going to replace it? No, I was just saying that I think the tech that, I mean, I wasn't talking about languages, I was talking about the stateful internet. Like, program, I mean, the thing is Elixir and Microsoft Release are the only two that are like really giving this like more stateful, active orientation so fast. So I think it's going to take Ruby because actually it's based on Ruby. So it's just, it doesn't have the libraries. Hey there, how's it going? Have I met you?
How have you been hearing this?
Oh, okay. I can't remember your name. What's Hayden? Hayden? Name's Austin. Good to meet you.
I think I've met you at some places. Jason? Hayden.
Yeah. What have you been up to? Oh, yeah. Good for you, man. Yeah. Good vacation out of it, chillax a little bit, and go back to the hunt. Like 2 months.
Yeah.
Maybe do 1 month.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Well,
Figure it all out.
but I
Okay.
guess last month, so that everything just.
So we're ready to start. Good evening, everybody. So I'm Larry Cooperman. I'm kind of the MC here. Got some news items to share with the group. The first one is our biggest news is that this is now IGDA Ann Arbor. It was just a piece of cake. It only took 3 months and 43 emails. We went through 2 changes of director at IGDA, but we're now there.
Alright.
So why is that a big thing? Well, for one thing, it leads to several other areas. The next company that I use it as a stepping stone, the next company that I'm going to target to develop a partnership with that is already an IGDA partner, but is Unity. I want Unity to know us and to love us. So that's the first thing. But I will tell you, it did not take very long. We got the IGDA stuff last week. And starting last night, I was contacted by the Detroit Tigers organization. They're looking for a senior programmer. That's already been posted on our job site, but it was just really cool that the head of the Tigers IT structure said, actually said to a buddy of mine who's the head of the game division for Major League Baseball, said to him, you know, do you know anybody at IGDA Detroit? He said, well, I know somebody at IGDA Ann Arbor. So that worked out really well, and that's cool. We're building step by step. For those of you who've been here from the beginning, we're actually 8 months old now. I believe that this is the 9th meeting for us, right? So we started in January. If you count it, I'm not counting uniques, but if you count it up, we've had close to 500 people attend the meetings. Many of you multiple times, but so that is pretty exceptional. Number of people that have joined the meetup, and we're running the 2 structures in parallel. So you know, if you joined through the meetup, you'll see the meetup page now is branded as IGDA Ann Arbor because Austin rhymes. So if you see that's on there, you'll notice that there are now over 300 members on our meetup page. So it's a great utility for game development, for jobs, both people seeking and people that are companies that are looking to fill job requirements, which is the goal that we had in mind for it. So that's that part. The next thing I have to tell you also on IGDA is if any of you are looking to join IGDA, why would you want to do that? Because it's a cool thing to put on your resume, especially if you're a student and it gives you a certain real world, you know, gravitas. So that would be a pretty cool thing. If you are looking to do that, IGDA annual membership is $48. $4 per month, only pennies a day. I'm sorry, I can't remember sales. It's just a reflex. So if you're looking to do that, to join that, on the pull down box when you type in Michigan, you'll see one of the options is to select IGDA Ann Arbor, and so please do. So that's that announcement. Next announcement is that again we're getting bigger, better, badder. So this is being videoed. We're going to be posting this onto YouTube. The reason for that is twofold. First of all, it's part of our marketing. It's to get our message out there that we exist and that we're a real organization. The second thing is not everybody can attend every meeting. If you can't, you will be able to not be able to tell whether it was live or Memorex. I don't know whether things like VR would translate very well into YouTube, but we'll try. How you doing? You're welcome. Come on in. Have a seat. If there aren't seats for you, there are some folding chairs out there. BYOS. Thanks. I'll let you figure out what the S stands for. Hey, David, how are you?
Hey, Larry.
We were going to hold a meeting waiting for you, but we decided. Okay, so those are a couple of those items. We've had a lot of pretty successful things come through this area. Most of you know Craig. He's been an attendee, been here pretty much since the beginning, right?
Pretty close.
Pretty close. I don't know how many of you were able to see the demo of what he's doing with VR. Whenever they do demos of VR, this is an all VR evening, but whenever they do demos of VR, there's always an old guy that says, no, that'll never work, it won't be for me. I am that old guy. I played this multiplayer game, and it really did blow me away. The experience of it wasn't so much, the game was cool, the experience of being in a virtual environment with other players and being able to interact with them took it to a whole other level. So I'm very impressed with that. Now that I got them warmed up for you, I'm going to give the audience over to you and knock them out. Thanks.
So yeah, I am doing a multiplayer VR thing. So I'm with Dreamgate VR. We are a VR entertainment company, and right now we're building a physical location, which is a large arena space where we have 4 players battling it out together, or whatever collaborative experience. Right now we've got sort of like a robot battle game and all that, and we're intending to grow from there. So, but first off, I thought the best way to sort of like give a feel for that's not good. The best way to give a feel for like what the company is to just give you guys like an origin story of how we even got where we are. Because, you know, like all of us, or many of us here who are developers, know the struggle to get, you know, to actually make it to the end goal is, it's you know, it doesn't just happen overnight. So, yeah, so I'm gonna turn this back on. There we go. Okay, so
If you want, do you want to do lights off? Take a look and see about that.
Yes, please.
okay, all right. So years ago, I was at a different game developer meetup, and a guy showed up and said, "Have you heard about the Oculus Rift?" And I said, "No." He said, "Oh, this is kind of cool VR thing, but whatever." And my immediate response was, "Well, VR was in the '90s and it's over, and we're not doing that anymore." And so I was like, "But someone's trying again. I got to check it out." So I checked it out, and it didn't look like VR in the '90s. And so I looked at it. I was like, "No, I still just." I don't know if it's for me. And then a week later, just sitting on the Kickstarter, of the Oculus Kickstarter, a week later, I was like, wait a second, that could change so many things. And it was overnight that it hit me. And so the gears were turning, and my first thought was, what if I started the world's first VR cyber cafe? That would be super cool. All I need is a bunch of VR headsets, and then I'm good. And so on the Kickstarter for the Oculus Rift was a 10-pack for $3,000. And I had just worked like a couple 80-hour weeks, and I had a little bit of money laying around, and I thought, what if I bought 10? That could be something. And so I talked to my friends, and I was like, is this crazy? Or is this cool? Maybe. And they're like, I don't know. I'm leaning crazy. And the fact that they were even on the fence meant that I thought it was, let's do it. So I pulled the trigger and I bought 10. And I was one of the last people to buy it because I was really, hemming and hawing about it. But for some reason, when you buy 10, you become one of the first ones to ever get it. I don't know why. So, so this shows up 2 months ahead of schedule, and I'm like, well, this is it. This is the beginning. So a big thing happened when I got them is that I realized that to have a cyber cafe, you need games. And so the problem is that I was one of the only people that had this stuff. So that was a big problem. So then I realized, oh man, now I got to give this stuff to people. So I started going around Ann Arbor and hunting out every nerd I could find and be like, put this on your face. You need to look at it, and also you need to make games. And so I became this like advocate, just going around doing demos. So I was going around communities, going to every meetup I could find, and telling about it. I would awkwardly show up to the tech departments of the U of M, the people that ran them, and be like, hey, you should look at this. And they would find it strange but agree. I went to the 3D lab at the U of M, and when I talked to them, they were like, yeah, we know about it, but we just don't have the budget for one. So I showed up there with these hydras, which gave like hand positioning, and this gamer laptop. I put it in. We did the roller coaster, all this stuff where you could punch objects in space. And then I heard through the grapevine as people are lining up to do this thing, they're like, they ordered 2 of them, and so suddenly they had budget for 2. So that's interesting. So then this might be a thing. So that went on, and I just kept going on, and did some stuff with the Ann Arbor District Library. My friend runs a render farm, and I just took all his computers and hooked up VR. So that's how I got these demos going. And we did like one of the first VR game jams, and just like getting as many people in VR as possible. So at the VR game jam, the guy that won, his team that won, he won an Oculus Rift. So Oculus was cool enough to give us an Oculus Rift to just give away, which blew my mind. So what he did with it is he did this thing, and maybe a few years ago you guys might have seen on Reddit, was he made this Quidditch simulator using a Wiimote and his Oculus Rift that he won, and that went viral, and it kind of launched things a little bit for him. So that was super cool. So from there, I had this idea. I was like, what's way cooler in the VR cyber cafe, would be to just, if we could get positional tracking on the VR headset, we could do a warehouse scale experience. That would be super cool. And so the first thing you needed to do was get a VR backpack. And so we took a gaming laptop, shoved it in a hastily modified backpack, and hooked up these hydras, which use the magnetic fields, and sort of made this first prototype here. So that was actually started something kind of cool. But then, so when I started researching how to get positional tracking in like a large space, they were like, well, if you have $200,000, no problem. Well, I had $3,000 for 10 headsets, but I didn't have $200,000 for getting positional tracking. So it was a whole new engineering effort. And then a little bit after that, about a year and a half later, this shows up, the HTC Vive. And I started looking, I'm like, what's with the tracking? And I realized that the tracking was actually inside out, which means that the headset looks for light to see where it is in space. The Oculus actually looks at the headset and then tells the headset where it is. So basically, it's completely wireless. And so I was like, oh my God, this is the thing. I can buy the headset and then not spend $200,000 and actually have tracking. So that was super exciting. And I thought, you know what? I can take this VR backpack idea off the shelf and start going with it. And so I started looking up parts online, and I started becoming like an armchair electronic engineer, which is very dangerous. But I was like, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna make my own VR backpack out of desktop components. And so I worked out the parts, and just as I worked out what parts to put in there and how to build this thing, and became an extremely mediocre electrical engineer, MSI announced that they were going to create their own VR backpack. And so I signed up immediately. I was like, I got to be one of the first people to do this. Give me the VR backpack. I need this. And no response. But then it got released completely commercially. It just popped up on Newegg. And I was like, well, this is obviously the beginning. So the first thing I did was and I started testing out the sensors to see what kind of range we could get. And from there, I just did some refinements, and I ended up getting tracking space in a 20 by 20 space, which is really exciting. So I guess I just put together a quick video here, just to sort of just like a montage of like things, how they started, and how we got up to this point.
Very few people realize that the high-tech slide at the beginning of it, that was actually a role play.
So that provided, so at the end of the day, what we ended up with is what I call a form factor. So we have this arena space, and you have multiple people in it. What does that mean? You know, what is it that a collaborative multiplayer space provide? And I think that's the important question. You know, that's what sort of drives really amazing games, experiences, and software to happen. And so it's almost like at that point in there where you saw that we just had a simple game and just 2 people in there, you know, we obviously started adding more players to see how that worked. But the thing is that, you know, typical VR, you're pretty much stuck within a one-step, you know, space. You're not really encouraged to explore the space at all. And one of the big negatives is that VR is generally isolating. So the second that you put on that headset, you know it's just you, and everyone else is just sort of watching you game show style. So they're watching you freak out at a horror game and laughing at you, or, you know, various other things. But the thing is that I think it's underappreciated how much people will go to a relatively mundane space on Earth. They wouldn't go by themselves to some random cornfield at night to creep themselves out, but they would go with a friend. You know, so there's a lot of things that you will do with company that you never do by yourself, and I think that's one of the barriers in VR, is that some people, you know, might think it's not for them, but if they're going to go visit effectively VR, they might visit it with a friend. And so, you know, that's sort of like a new opportunity to sort of learn how do people use this virtual space when they share it. The big question right now with consumer VR is how does one person use it by themselves? But how do people use the same space when they share it? That's a relatively new question. And so right now, not many people can really hop into the same space with a friend and just sort of goof off in VR. You know, they can't just put on a VR headset right now in this room and just walk around together in a space. You know, there's no real platform to unify all the machines together and then make it easy to just throw some software on it, hop in, and then try some stuff out. And so, you know, we think that that's a pretty important thing to provide easy access to put software into this shared space environment and then interact with it. And our first venture into that is to show how fun shared space can be and launch a business and let people explore it. So going through here, so I'm going to explain our game a little bit. So the few things we did here to sort of like incentivize space. When we first made the game, we realized that when people just go in there and they just stand in place and just go and just shoot around in circles, as if they're doing single player VR. So then, you know, there clearly wasn't any incentive to use the space. And so what we did is we created some incentives. So we added some power-ups, and so people have to drift off into danger to grab power-up for health, faster shooting, and points. And then another thing is the idea of like creating stuff in space. And so you can actually create shields with your pistols to sort of like create a little fortress of shields there. So you can sort of see here that they like created like a mega wall here. And so that's like the game plan. And that and as far as I'm concerned, that's just touching, that's just the tip of the iceberg. You know, as far as what you can do in space. So and another guy here is that we wanted to incentivize positively to go into other spaces, but also maybe punish people for staying still. So there are firebombs that come in, and players have to run away and try not to burst into flames. So, and obviously in a lot of VR games, you can see that there's reticles attached to things, and we tried this thing where we got the ammo and the guns, and we've got points and time over here, and a health bar over there. So yeah, and so a question is, what do you do with dead people? Because in VR, if you're playing an online game or something, your character dies, they just go slump on the ground. Well, since you're a physical person in physical space, you can't just slump on the ground, so we just did a ghost effect. But there's so much stuff you could do there. Could your body slump to the ground, but a ghost remains? That might be something there. And then maybe they can bring a health pack over to the body, and then some really uncanny valley stuff happens. Yeah, so so there's a lot of different stuff that we didn't do. There's some interesting stuff where you could mount machine guns or cannons on the edge of the arena, and people could battle enemies approaching. If it was like a tower defense game, you could have like a catapult that you man, and all these different things. There's a lot of different things. You grab the catapult while I man the cannon. There's stuff you can do as people run around a space. And you don't really see it that often because in VR, you just don't move that much. So they would never create that opportunity because it would be cumbersome. So, all right. So the idea was to unify this hardware so that it's easy for developers to sort of drop in, upload their app. It goes to all the systems and just sort of works. And so we're developing what we're calling the Dreamgate platform, which allows that. Where effectively we give you instructions on how to package your app. We put it in our system, and it automatically downloads to all of our backpacks, and it manages all the state and user state between all the backpacks, and has a backend that does a lot of data management for you.
Unity?
So yeah, that's good. That's a good question. So what we're doing is we're doing a RESTful API. So you're really just contacting a web server and asking for the configuration you need. The Dreamgate platform it has runtimes on every backpack. But before I go into that, I'm going to play our sort of, we had an event on August 23rd where we did a big, I invited a bunch of people over and just ran people through it to see what everybody thought. So we got a professional video guy and he did a really good job. So I'm just going to show this video we put together.
Show Kyle, not me.
You're not just trying to make fantastic experiences, you're trying to make people feel something real, feel something profound. To be able to have that feeling, not just in your everyday setting, but maybe on the top of a skyscraper, battling robots. You're not saying, wasn't it cool that scene in the movie? You end up saying, wasn't it cool that we escaped?
That was awesome.
Sorry. Got a robot on our face. Not his own. Come on, you're feeding me. It's like waking up from a dream when you get out of it. Like when you close your eyes and you're dreaming and you think that, what's happening in front of you is real. You wake up and you're like, oh, I'm in my bedroom. Pretty close to that.
If there's anything about any industry is that it doesn't take off until you open it up to developers. What we're gunning for is creating what we're calling the Dreamgate platform. We have a form factor for VR, and so what we can guarantee to developers is that we will have 20 by 20 spaces with 4 people sharing that space, so build anything for it. When you give 1 million developers this technology and then ask them to make things for it, they'll think of 1,000 things that would have never occurred to you. The most important thing that we can provide is to take something people want to experience and make it real for them. Okay, so I told you about the Dreamgate platform. The first step is what we're calling these arenas. We're calling them realms, and the realm is the form factor. So right now, this is a 20 by 20 space. It fits 4 players, and the great thing about it is that it fits in a lot of different spaces, and it's really scalable. It's not expensive to set up, and so we can have a lot of different locations, and we can scale quickly and get developers more access to customers that they normally wouldn't. The problem right now with VR is that not a lot of people own it, and so even if you make really great software, you don't really get that much back. And so what we're trying to do is instead of just, there's a lot of ads trying to explain what VR is, but the problem with VR is that you really don't believe in it until you try it. And the best way to try it is, in our minds, is to get it right in front of people, to get this in malls so people are already on their feet. They're watching people use it, and they can just jump in and give it a try. And so that's what we're trying to do, is try to bring this to some areas where there's a lot of foot traffic, and then allow developers to make more epic experiences so when people's first experience with your game is probably the best VR they've experienced, better than the one they can get at home. So our dream is to really create, and obviously, everyone talks about the idea of recreating a holodeck. And it would only fit to take a basketball-sized space and call it a holodeck. And so the idea is to take space, extremely large space, and then create really long-form experiences where you're going on an adventure. You're doing things that take a half an hour or longer. There's a story to it. The way I see it is that there's something more profound when you go on an adventure with a friend and then have a story to tell that you created together. There's more depth there than just going to the theater. And so that's why I think this sort of environment has the potential to compete with theaters. And theaters are looking to actually keep revenue going because people are starting to get really nice theater experiences at home. So the way we want to try to create as little friction as possible between creating a game and getting it in front of people in these arenas is the Dreamgate platform. So it's made of 4 components. It's made of the portal, and the portal is the sort of web backend where developers will upload their apps, and then we will talk with the developers, and it'll go through an approval process, and then it'll be accessible to every single location, every single Dreamgate location. And so the idea is effectively the developer makes the app, puts it in the portal, and then the runtime that's running on every server in every location automatically connects with the web backends and then boots up these backpacks if needed, and then gets the software in the exact state it needs to be, so that when people show up to the location, they can choose between all the different apps. They can say, oh, I want to do the zombie shooter game. Oh, I want to do the escape room game. And then they choose that. And then, based on playtime and other metrics, there's revenue sharing. And so that's the idea there, is to sort of make it like an app store for large-scale, multiplayer shared space VR. So currently we're looking for software partners, obviously, to help build out really cool games for this platform. And business partners that we might have something in common that we could benefit mutually over. And obviously investors would help us scale much more quickly, get us access to customers. And the more access to customers we have, the more incentive there is for developers to make games for this. And needing space, we need a lot of experts in real estate to sort of help us along the way to find really good space. And since we're launching soon, it'll be great to get feedback. And as we talk to you guys, any developers that want to talk to us, any developer that talks to us now will obviously be one of our first partners, software partners, and we'll be working in concert to sort of make the platform better. You know, what did we do in our API that just really made no sense? You know, what can we do to streamline everything? So this is what the location is going to look like. And it's going to be launching in Briarwood on October 13th, Friday the 13th. And it's going to be in front of Sears. So if you guys know Briarwood, it's going to be there. And so we're going to be open Friday morning. And you guys can come by and give it a shot and see if it's something, you know, that gets you excited.
How many days a week is it open?
Good question. It's going to be open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so we'll be closed Monday through Thursday, open back up again every Friday through Sunday. Let's see if I missed anything here. Yeah, so that's about it. Anyway, so I just covered a few things here, technical things. The game we built right now is in Unreal, so that's all the technology, basically technology stack right now for just the game. So yeah.
What's your price point for your consumer?
We're targeting $10 for a 10-minute window.
Is that per user? So if you
Per user, yeah, and we're figuring out pricing for if you buy a 4-pack, because you know we really want to get 4 people in there as often as possible. So yeah.
If I had 3 friends, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have any mechanism for sort of people looking for more to play with a group of 4, but are arriving as complete strangers?
Oh, you mean like if you play by yourself and there's another stranger there, are we going to put you both together?
Yes, or
Yeah,
people
of
who
course,
want to.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if the goal is to get strangers hanging out too. I think it's a great. Especially at the event, we had plenty of strangers just playing it together, and it's actually really interesting to see what happens there. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned beforehand that you were working 80-hour days. What did you do before you started Dreamgate?
I do, what is it? I would be considered a creative technologist for advertising. So I do a lot of programming and programmer, like particle effects and animation stuff for advertising companies. And they let me do a lot of really cool stuff, actually. They let me do some web VR stuff. I can convince my bosses that I want to do a cool thing, and every once in a while I can. And sometimes Google, you know, the current company I'm working with, sometimes Google approaches them and wants to do an experiment. I'll help, you know. So yeah, it's really great. If you guys end up getting like an advertising programming job, I recommend it.
Who's your management team?
I'm the CEO, so I'm doing a lot of the management. Greg back there is doing, he's directing operations, so he's making sure that I've got all my I's dotted and T's crossed. So my friend Todd is the lead developer on this, with me assisting as much as I can, and that's about the team, and obviously a bunch of friends and family being awesome and helping out.
Are you facing any unique issues with either injury or athleticism or hygiene in any of these areas? Because you're really talking about a piece of clothing that people are sharing. And how are you dealing with those? Is insurance coming after you for anything excessive, or is the mall or anything like that?
He's an attorney.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, hey, attorney. I'm myself. I'm a lawyer, so this is how I do these things.
We should talk after this.
One of the reasons I asked Rick to come. So.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so we're modeling after laser tag.
Sure.
So that's sort of what we're going for. The mall is cool with that so far. Okay. So that's what we're sort of working on.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the hardware of the backpack?
The hardware. What's in it?
Yeah, what's the GPU? What's the CPU?
It's got an i7 in it. I forget what number. But it's got an i7, a 1070 desktop class.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a desktop class 1070. And I think it has 2 batteries in it, and I think each is 100 milliamp batteries, so they're really huge.
How much RAM?
16 gigabytes.
That's a pretty serious machine.
You played at the demo, right? You were there, right? How
Yeah,
smooth was the experience?
Smooth as silk.
Yeah, they're powerful machines, and that was the thought too. I was like, okay, get really powerful machines and spend a little bit of money, or get weak machines, save a little bit of money, and then spend 4 months optimizing. I thought I'll get the expensive machine. So.
I think one of those slides in there mentioned VR motion platforms with the holodeck stuff.
Oh yeah. So let's see if I can get it. There we go. Yes, so there's actually some really nice platforms that are built for modular modification. So you could actually hook up a HOTUS to do like Elite Dangerous, like a space simulator, which would be amazing personally. That's what I would do. And then you can attach a wheel and get racing games in there, or just remove all of that and have roller coaster simulators. So there's some really great platforms. There's one I have in mind. I'll have to look up the info on it, but there's some real fun potential for motion pads for sure. Nice. Yeah.
Okay. How much do backpacks weigh?
8 pounds.
I'm just curious about when you talk about the longer form experience and stuff like that. Is there any, how are you considering or optimizing for fatigue? You know, there's things on your head, there's things on your back, there's things in your hands.
Yeah, so I think right now we're at like low risk for fatigue with the 10-minute windows. So we're sort of avoiding a lot with that. We're avoiding sweating too, a lot of sweating. That happens a lot more after the 10-minute mark. But yeah, we have modified rubber for the headset so that it doesn't soak up sweat, and we can wipe it off after every session. So that's what we've got planned for that. And the backpack is here, and you guys can try it on to see how it feels. When I looked at it and I saw how big those batteries were, and it looks like a Ghostbusters backpack, I thought, you know, I'm really worried about this. Is gonna be real clunky, and everyone's gonna say, "Oh, that's so heavy," you know. And then I put it on, and it's just like the weight of laser tag.
It vanishes. I mean, essentially, it does. You become unaware of it.
Yeah, MSI did an amazing job. Their ergonomics is actually really good. They created a gap between the machine, an air gap, so the heat of the machine doesn't actually get on you and it blows the heat away. So they did a really good job. Yeah. So I'd say I'm not worried about fatigue because it's like having one light book in a school bag. It's sort of what it feels like. Yeah.
Just kind of curious, if a developer wanted to make a more kind of athletic experience in a game, you would not approve a game that had people tactically rolling, would you?
No, right. Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. It's something I feel like it should, you know, we're obviously going to be working on like the qualifications, the qualifiers for an app. Motivating running is obviously not going to be good. Because that obviously risks of tripping, falling, breaking machinery, and stuff like that. And so really working that out. But the really big thing is, and something you saw in one of the videos there, was that I was trying to get the full body presence. And so one of the really big things that I feel is a very important requirement is to have full body presence in the apps. Because that's how you know someone else is present. That's actually the important part. You know, that's what triggers you naturally to avoid walking into them. But it also makes you feel present too. So there's a lot of advantages. If you guys get a chance to see it, I think the merits show themselves.
So, I mean, I'd recommend that anybody, if you really have questions, you make time to get over to Briarwood and check it out, because the description of the experience, no matter how it's a problem with VR, or the challenge with VR, no matter how you try to describe it, it's not the same as the experience itself. But as I said, I'm that old guy that says, oh no, this will never work. And I was captivated immediately. One thing, I don't know if you touched on the presentation, they define the outer limits of the space. Do you call those bumpers? What do you
Yeah, I mean, in the game, they're bumpers. That, you know, we're like, we don't want them to be walls. We just want to, obviously, wouldn't step over it.
The virtual world maps the boundaries of the real world so you don't go wandering off. But there's this, how many people have done a VR experience? So where did you do it? Man, you never invite me anymore.
Yeah, I invite all the kids. PlayStation.
So if you do it at home, that's fine. If you've gone to a store or if you've gone to anywhere public, you have that awkward experience of being the only one in the virtual world, and you know that everybody's looking at you.
Yeah.
You don't have any of that because it's a shared experience, because it's a shared reality. I didn't have any sense of, when you first had me, when you first shanghaied me into putting on the headset, I was like, no, this is going to be embarrassing. Within 30 seconds, you've forgotten that you're, that there's external reality. So. Go ahead, Rick.
Sorry, yeah.
I can stop. I already asked the question. I can stop.
All right,
no, I'll wait.
Sure. Do you plan, or how do you plan on future-proofing for accessibility, especially for those who have difficulty walking or running, or for those who like the kind of forced movement mechanics would be really detrimental? Like,
yeah, I thought about that actually. I thought about. I was like, this could be really fun for someone that's in a wheelchair. Because you can actually put the backpack on them still, or even on their wheelchair, and put the headset on. You could put yourself in a backpack on and push their wheelchair around in the arena, and actually, and this is obviously just going a little bit out there, but create an alternate player model that fits the wheelchair, and then actually have people wheelchair around. So I think there could be something there, where if they have trouble, if they have crutch or something like that, and they really can't walk around, that maybe give them a wheelchair option. That could be something. Is that?
Yeah, no, that's great that you thought about it.
Oh,
cool. So, I guess this is going on with the having a full body image in every game. So a little bit farther down the line, we have, let's say, multiple games lined up for this experience. How are you planning on coordinating it so that people who are playing different games don't end up running into each other? Because it would be.
Oh, so the idea is that the arena itself is playing one game.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that's how.
Right. Exactly. That would be interesting. That'd be interesting to pull off. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You started your pitch, and I really liked it, talking about how you wanted to encourage people to visit spaces together, go places that they wouldn't go by themselves. And I found that one of the biggest successes I've had, just in terms of incorporating my family into the virtual reality, is taking them on what I would call non-games. Visits to the White House, going to Disney World, things of that nature. Have you thought at all about, with your name and your company being as inspiring as it is in terms of dreams and things like that, having what we might not characterize as a game as much as an interactive entertainment and a tour of some kind, or looking at a concert from a different angle, but in a very cool, high-definition virtual reality environment? Because I think, especially for non-gamers, that's a very accessible way to get them involved in VR. It really blows their minds a lot of the time.
Yeah, for sure. I've had that thought where I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have like VR field trips?
Yeah.
Yeah, where kids pack up in a bus, they drive down, and they visit King Tut's tomb. And they walk around and they examine all the different things, and it could even be photogrammetry, where people go in and take 1 million pictures of the space, and the amazing algorithms that what's that company? But I mean, there's some really great algorithms that formulate the 3D space based on the photos, and it could be so cool if there is some really good photogrammetry of a lot of these really interesting spaces, and just put people in, and they just walk through. It could even be a tour guide in VR with them, explaining stuff. So, or a virtual tour guide, for all, for what it's worth.
Or you could do a mashup, like, going to the White House and shooting everyone in there.
That sounds like your game, Larry.
Marketing, I'm always thinking marketing. Secret Service alert.
So how are you handling the legs? Because you're not tracking the legs, are you?
No, we are making that up. Yeah, so that's just based on the player position movement, the velocity, and that progresses a walking animation. And there's a bunch of other algorithmic stuff that gets it when you crouch, that the legs crouch properly and the hips go back, because we're not tracking your hips either. So there's a lot of magic in the background to make the thing is that as long as the other person looks natural, then you don't really think about it too much.
So
I know you said you wanted to create a holodeck type experience. So do you have any plans for modifying any in the year with haptic feedback or creating any other sensory input?
I've definitely thought about it. I mean, if it makes sense financially, for sure. The thing for me is to I want to make people feel as unencumbered as possible. You know, a lot of the haptic feedback stuff right now is you're really strapping in. Right now, to get in, it's just remotes, straps, maybe a clip, good to go. You know, so then you know you can get moving. I think with longer form stuff, or if you're going to be in for 45 minutes, then it's okay to start strapping stuff. Maybe then we can start doing full body tracking. You know, and actually have actual leg presence. You know, then as long as if they're in there for longer, then if setup time takes 5 minutes, then it makes more sense. So yeah, I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, again, with the leg stuff, so would that be like you get a person's height when you first turn it on, and then it's based off that? Or?
Yeah, actually, so we get them in the game, and we hit a calibrate height button, and then based on their current standing height, it recalibrates the size of the model for that. Yeah.
I figured it would be a such, but...
Yeah, it was way easier to implement than I thought.
What about like countertops or something for like I thought of Overcooked when I saw it rather than like shooting outside the place. But I haven't played a lot of VR games. But I think it would be fun to play a 4-player like hectic cooking game or something. Just because like I could see throwing patties across the.
Yeah, I mean honestly, that brings up a thought, which is like, you know, one of the things that I think is really important to promote is a spectator entertainment aspect to it. You know, you saw there was a TV there showing what's going on, and at our official location, we're going to have 2 60-inch TVs with 2 different scenes, switching camera views and stuff like that, so that, you know, people that aren't playing have something to do. And honestly, I've really been thinking, I was like, wow, maybe we should stream this on Twitch. And so if there was a cooking show thing, you know, that could be hilarious to watch, especially if it was like a surgeon simulator kind of thing, you know, or, you know, it's just like they're failing in hilarious ways for, you know, 10 minutes. I'd watch it, you know, so yeah, I think that's great.
Which one do you want to watch fail, the cooking or the surgeon one?
Both. If it was both at the same time. Back there.
I just, part of your business model was trying to have 4 people in every game. So one thing I was curious about is if you looked at any sort of like artificial characters or maybe patching into different games to different locations from your long-term plan, like multiple locations for the same platform.
You mean as if it was 2 arenas, but so it'd be 8 people in the same space, like networked?
Yeah, or one arena with 2 people.
4 people, 2 in some space, and
or 2 arenas like across from each other. Just different configurations of that, of like having 2 arenas interacting in some way. Or you're saying like even 2 people. There's one idea which is like you could have 2 people on each half, and then, you know, create the illusion in the game and split the half like 40 feet apart, so they think there's this big gap between them. But really, in reality, they're just right next to each other.
Yeah, I was more just talking about like you could have one person playing with 3 people in the same arena from a different state.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, not something we've implemented, but I think that would be super cool. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, eventually, with like good enough networking, you know, if down the line it could be something that can provide something cool. Yeah.
Can you talk about the consumer angle of it? You're in malls, you're getting friends, and consumers as the end users. But what about the B2B possibilities here? Is there a reason why you're starting with consumer, or like do you have any kind of ideas around that?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some business-to-business stuff, you know. Yeah, my girlfriend Birgit actually brought up the idea of bringing this to like retirement homes, you know, because and bringing some relaxing or even exciting experiences, you know. That I think there is a lot of potential there. Right now, this seems to be as far as our strategy is concerned, is to get it in front of people that wouldn't normally, you know, look at VR and get them exposed to it.
the company, and Craig and I have been talking about this before, the company that probably has the greatest vested interest in what you are doing currently, I would think would be Steam.
Yeah.
Because Steam is heavily invested in VR, but they're not being very successful in growing their audience. The early adopters did their thing. Steam has the deep pockets, the wherewithal, the developer community, I mean, to get people to go to a mall to try this. And if you dig the VR experience, go home and buy it.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully it motivates people to buy it at home. But honestly, I would like to. I'd rather run around an arena. There's a lot of different ways to go about it. I think there's a lot of B2B opportunities for sure.
Yeah, I think about companies that want to do team building activities. You don't go do laser tag. That's dumb.
Right.
Don't do this. Or you think about companies that would, or events like professional associations or things that would want you to, they would pay you to come and provide entertainment at the event and things like that, where you already have a large number of potentially end consumers. You do one event and you could reach 1,000 people, or one company and reach a couple hundred at a time.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Yeah, for sure. It is something we did look up, like how much do a lot of these people that sort of bring arcade experiences to businesses for team building exercises, how much do they charge? And honestly, it's a great opportunity.
I'm going to kind of wrap this up because we do have another presenter and I want to give people a chance to settle in. We're kind of all over the place. Contact information for you?
Yeah, I mean, get my business card. I have a bunch here, and Craig@DreamgateVR.com.
And we can also, you're on the post on the Meetup page.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, for sure. And I'll put our Facebook page up there and stuff.
Cool.
So yeah.
All right.
Great.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, Duncan, are you gonna be speaking?
Both of us, yeah.
Both of you? Okay, cool.
I'll speak first.
I'm gonna give people like about 5 minutes. Feel free to switch over.
Airport stuff.
So, what are you doing?
Right now my own project is
Is there an outlet by you, Jason? There is.
pretty good, so.
Help me out. I'll say that. Oh, it's becoming quite messy.
And so let's the tracking system always beautiful yeah. They use that to change the silhouettes of the cars, and what they do is they make these calls to the kids, like shots or whatever. So that's what kind of system that's their shot.
How'd you get good guys off last night?
All kind of flags before
That's pretty cool. Yeah. That's pretty cool. I actually got to try it a few years ago. So how far the body's not moving. So that was so nice when like you're trying to make it stand still. Another practice is trying to make it stand still. It's not more than just like move over the so when I came to new ones, that's one of the things that I think are yeah, right. You have this concept of moving, putting your gear and then trying to do stuff with the moving, but if they're not moving, right? It's pushing your brain, doing exactly. I think that's a good I always wonder at some point if you had like a big warehouse in that cars and each factory, you would have this. Like the first times I didn't have the like after the second time I got the iPad actually move around and actually like really get in there. Like I did lots of like walking around and actually did some like I was actually doing some like martial arts stances and stuff. So, like I did kind of like doing like really low and doing like lunge kind of walking around there. Like bad guys right off the bad guy. I had a shield and I had a gun guy. Like I did kind of extra just like that was actually kind of cool. I enjoyed that. Yeah, it improved. I didn't feel like like, wow, there's a lot you can do with it. I was thinking like real estate. Yeah. Oh yeah. You have multiple houses loaded up in there. You have a little white space. And the VR show you. The interesting thing is that I think how big this is. Yeah, I was thinking like having a whole room. Yeah. And then you don't need them all anymore. But then you just play them online. So like that might be the same thing with my podcast in the theater.
Alright guys, hey guys, I encourage you to talk amongst yourselves, but we can continue this conversation after the presentation. I didn't do it. So, isn't that quiet? Wow. I don't get this respect from my kids. So okay, this has kind of been virtual reality game night. Our next presenter, I actually saw the second time here presenting here, but they've done a pivot in terms of what they do. I was at Gwydion on last Friday, and again, it was one of those things that the description did not do justice to what the experience was. It was a really excellent and truly innovative experience. The things that you're doing in a space that nobody else is really playing, as far as I know. We were also at A2 New Tech Tuesday, but you have more than 5 minutes this time. So yeah. So please give a warm round for Duncan. Thanks, guys.
Lights there,
I think they're in the corner.
yeah, slides are bad in the way. So yeah, usually I'm pitching in front of business audiences. So this part of what I'm talking about is a little businessy, but trying to trim it down for kind of more about what our content is. I'm going to go over what we are now, what Gwydion has become in kind of last year, and then I'll talk about kind of how we got there and what we were before that. We made a pivot, like Larry said. Yeah, so Gwydion Inc. I'm Duncan, CEO. This is Whit over here, our system architect. And we build VR software, but we're trying to solve a really specific problem that we found in industry. So looking at how universities and pharma and manufacturing, R&D and architecture deal with 3D information, it's on 2D screens. It's on paper, it's on drawings, and this is archaic and it's inconvenient, but it's also a really big time sink and resource sink. It actually causes miscommunications, mistakes that cost billions of dollars. And this is not something people think about. They think about, okay, we want to just use the systems we've been using for 30 years, 40 years. In pharma, they've been using the same software to simulate their molecular simulations and communicate those results for 30 years. The solution to that, backing up, there's a good example of this. There's a professor at Stanford who does drug design and drug research. We kind of started communicating with him 4 months ago. He has a problem when he reports his results, his 3D results for molecules, for lab results, to other labs around the world. And he's spending hours each week doing this and wasting hours in the miscommunications and errors that pop up because they can't convey the concepts that are really inherently 3D or 2D medium. He actually had to fly out to Israel a month ago for a week to clear up a misunderstanding for a tiny protein switch, like one atom was off on a big molecule. It was not a big problem conceptually, but had huge implications. It wasted 3 months of data, a week of flying out there, spending the time and money doing that, and not doing research in his lab. And that could have been fixed if he could have worked together in a virtual space with the 3D content across the world with both labs. So the solution, this over here, is looking at your models, looking at your data in real 3D as if it was really there. You know, I'm going to talk about virtual reality, that's why we're here, but on a broader aspect, the solution is being able to actually be present in the data. So not just yourself, but with someone else, with other labs around the world or in person, and being able to actually manipulate the data and be part of the experience. So we built a platform that can do this, and it's called Arthea. Arthea is a virtual reality platform that democratizes access to virtual reality for any industry. The idea is any user can upload any file type from any industry to be viewable and accessible on any VR or AR capable device. To make it like you saw in Star Wars, you need more than that, and to make it useful in these industries, you need more than that. You need it to be universally accessible and universally collaborative. So we made it so that people can work together in these scenes on their models throughout the world in real time and be part of these interactions. So Zhao, the guy on the other slide, could have put on his headset, whether it's a Vive or whether he's on a cardboard, and work together with the researchers in Israel in the same virtual environment, and they both could walk through the model and pointed out the errors and resolve this in minutes. So a little more market stuff, you know, basically looking at starting at universities. We're already at UVM, we're at Stanford, and we're moving out eventually to pharma is kind of the next one, but all these other markets are adjacent and they'll connect to universities. So we're really piloting this out at universities, making the tech work, and finding connections with people, researchers who actually work in these other industries, and using that as a direct line of communication and direct line of sales to these other markets. As I say, Gwydion has been around for about a year. $10,000 from UMich as kind of pilot revenue to get the prototype that's working for one department for this year, and then we actually got into the Sci Accelerator, which is over in Ann Arbor, if you know what that is, and just this past fall really scaled up a little bit, got more revenue from UMich, and actually revenue from some clients who wanted to take our back end and use it in a virtual tour system. So the idea that this is applicable across industries because it lets you dynamically get content in and interact with the content throughout the world with as many people as you want to is attractive to a lot of different industries. We actually had a meeting with the provost of U of M a few weeks ago, and he was ecstatic about our technology and really wants to move it forward and get it in the hands of every student and researcher at U of M probably within the year. You know, everyone's doing VR now. A lot of people are doing VR in kind of attractive spaces like architecture and games and tourism. These three companies are examples of people who are actually trying to work in dynamic loading like we are. And they're interesting, but they're pigeonholed into certain niche industries like Sketchfab is just art design, Augment is just retail, Insight VR is kind of secret, but mostly interior design. And that's because they only accept some file types for some headsets and don't really allow you to interact with the experience in a meaningful way or collaborate in a meaningful way to actually have more than one person get value out of this. And communication is kind of the cornerstone of any big industry. That's kind of the business side of what Gwydion is. We're going to talk a bit more about Arthea in a minute, but yeah, I want to talk first about how we got here. We weren't Gwydion at first. We actually started in 2015 fall as a company called Trapped Note. I mean, we weren't even a company at first. We were a group of kids at U of M having fun with VR. We actually started at MHAX where the Google Cardboard API just came out, and we were just messing around with it. We actually won the MHAX Game Design Award and got kind of hyped by that, started playing around with VR, met JJ Bouchard at Mott Children's Hospital, who directs Child Life there, and got really engaged for a few months making a game with him to get children to feel like they weren't stuck in hospitals, to make kind of an open world VR experience for mobile, so it could be used for a lot of kids at once, cheaply, you know, cardboards, especially for hospitals that didn't have the resources that Mott has. That really kind of built up our team. We got a few more people on during that time and got involved in other organizations like Optimize, which is a great group to be involved with over at U of M. Eventually got involved with TechArb over at U of M as well. And just kind of got experience in VR. We've been working in Unity that entire time. So just built our Unity experience and got used to working with APIs that made VR possible at this time. And so after that, started to make a few more games, moved on to Unreal for a bit, made some higher-end games for Vive, made a mobile game that's on the store now called Jet VR, which is like a racing experience for mobile on cardboard. And kind of, we're happy with where we were, but decided that we weren't making that much money, and we wanted to do something that would get new VR experiences in the hands of people who weren't using it before. And so actually we're looking at some professors at Michigan, and one of them had this problem where she couldn't visualize her 3D data in a meaningful way that could get the students, that could get students to understand the material, and that could get labs to really communicate effectively. So that's where we transitioned from TrapNote to Gwydion, and took this leap from kind of gaming to industrial research, university application. Yeah, that was kind of a history of us. Can you pull up maybe the video now? Sure, you could call. So let this be some footage of kind of our data being used and some things we've done. This is all.
There's skulls in the.
This is us at various events, working with people who are confused and excited about putting on VR the first time. So we kind of set this in a simple library setting. The idea is to make it be able to run on mobile and not lag out all the time, but also just make you focus on the content in front of you. This is on Oculus, right? This is Oculus controllers, and the idea is you can load up whatever you want. This is some chemicals, some neuroscience versus look at, move it around, you can dissect it a little bit. You can load in multiple models and edit them. I think right now they're just pulling out parts of it. And the idea is you really want people to take their content and interact with it like you would if it was a 3D model. People in chemistry labs and material science labs had those ball and stick models. They actually have on the table, and they have 10 to 30 of them per lab usually. And those are really useful, but you only have 10 to 30. And there are millions and millions of permutations of molecules you can have. And so you really want to be able to do it dynamically like this. Let's get that a little bit. And that's this annotation going to be. Yes, good. So, another thing we've been doing is one of the cornerstones of our work is we want to be accessible from any industry. So, had to do a lot of work to get weird files like DICOM files, which are from X-rays and MRIs to work. They do now, so arthea.io, which is where the platform is hosted online, you can upload DICOM files or other weird files from different industries, molecular simulations, and in fact, that's a lot of the cornerstone of what we do. You can see right now they're kind of annotating the skull. In 3D, annotating is a lot more useful than sketching on a 3D drawing on paper because you don't know where actually the lines are coming out. So here you could pull the skull away and take a look at the lines, or move the skull with them, and really walk around and get a sense of the model you're working with. Yeah. Yeah, target places in the model where right here there's obviously these thinner places in the skull that might have been fractures or might have been weak bone tissue. This is actually the U of M dentistry school was trying to use VR before this, and their process was to take a CAT scan or an X-ray, send it to the U of M 3D lab, wait 3 weeks for them to manually touch it up and convert it. Then they package it as a single application, send it back for just Oculus, and they can look at it just with that one application for that one file, and it takes 3 weeks. So now we can do this in 10 minutes or 2 minutes, depending on the file, and it works for any headset and can collaborate in real time with more than one person. So they were ecstatic to switch over and just start using this. Yeah. I mean, you can see for this. There's more things, rocket engine. This is not, what is this? This is
it's a rocket engine.
This is a rocket engine, okay.
It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
That's the video.
Sure. Yeah. Let me open up Arthea. So it's our web end, Arthea, and the whole premise of the platform is that you can go on this web end. Oh yeah, you can go on this web end and upload whatever file you want, or file type you want, collection files, and converts has a little thing that tells you it's ready to be in VR on the left-hand side, and then once it's there, you can view it, and view it on any of your devices where you're logged in on the same account. You can collaborate with people who also have Arthea accounts, and that can be around the world or in the same room.
So hold on a second, collaboration. So if I want to collaborate with you, right, we're in 2 different countries or whatever, how can we create a private space with just 2 of us together?
So that's not going to be publicly here, but I'll describe it. You'll have connections, kind of like Facebook friends, right? And you can directly find connections via email on Arthea. Once they're connected with you, when you're in the app, you can create a hosting room and you can invite friends or groups of friends. So if you have a class of 200 kids, students, you can invite the entire class with a click. You don't have to go through and invite all of them. Or you can invite one person and then they're all in the same like streaming session where it's not like a video, it's really you're streaming the data of the file. So they could be walking around and looking at it from different angle that you're walking around from. That's where it's most useful. So now it's the use upload hoot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with upload hoot, and we'll see converts. Yeah. Yeah, so hoot is converted. And yeah, so now you have the app, which I guess you can pull up if you want to. You could view hoot, which I think is a hoot. And yeah, you can do it on your phone, or you can do it on Oculus or Vive, whatever. Yeah, that is kind of our field. And so this is a different kind of environment for us to talk about it in, but I'm happy to answer kind of questions about how it works, our processes. We are working Unity now. We kind of moved away from Unreal because Unreal has not as good support for a wide range of APIs for both VR and kind of model conversion and kind of stuff like that. So interesting trade-off. Unreal's better for rendering and better for performance, but worse.
You're not doing a first-person shooters.
Yeah, exactly. It's worse for all this other kind of interaction stuff. So someday we might have an Unreal port for kind of the higher end things we do, because I do enjoy working in that, but not at the moment. Yeah, happy to answer questions about it. I think we'll then talk a little bit about some of our process and things we've learned along the way. I mean, we're working on this for years now. So, yeah.
You mentioned like medical files, MRI, stuff like that. So I had an MRI done on my shoulder a few months ago, and I have that, the disc with all that data in it. So you're saying I can upload all that data and put this on, and then I could actually go into my own shoulder and see what's actually going on in there.
Yeah, I can actually answer to that. My mom actually had 3 craniotomies in the last year, and so she has these discs. And so that was kind of a motivation for me. Is it came at kind of a timing where she was getting out of surgery and getting these discs, and we were just starting our work on DICOM files. And so I was actually able to visualize the discs that she got back. Now you have to have a specific type of MRI scan done. It has to be a 3D MRI, whereas a lot of the MRIs kind of, something for like, if they're just trying to look at the bones in your shoulder, they don't need to visualize that in 3D, they just need to look at if it's fractured or something like that. They'll typically do that in 2D. But if you do have a 3D MRI file, you can just drag that right in. And it was so interesting to see the process that the hospital took. Michigan's a great hospital. She had some of the best doctors in the world to do this. And it took them 3 weeks to create a CD. And we had to fish out a laptop in a closet that had a CD player. Because, it's 2017.
What's a CD?
What's a CD, right? And it came from this company, and I looked them up, and it turns out that they literally have a person at a desk that's taking these files and burning them onto a CD for every single patient. And I took her files and dragged them into our web app, and within 10 minutes we were looking at that file in high definition, in great quality on Vive. And she was able to see that and annotate her own MRI scans. So I thought that was a kind of a watershed moment for me, where I thought, not only is this really attractive to doctors, but also the patient experience, I imagine, would be a lot better. It's something that you could be doing in the waiting room or in the doctor's office, showing people this stuff, because it is so fast.
Does it have the ability to kind of like break apart, this muscle and color code it versus that muscle?
Yeah, that's one of the things that the Michigan School of Dentistry asked us about, and that's a tool that we're currently working on. It's called slicing, and the ability to kind of wrap around a group of polygons and separate that from the rest. Because that's one of the things that is important for teaching, is to say, here's the crack in this jaw, and let me take out the outer bone, and I'll take out the middle layer, and kind of dissect down. So
to add to that, that actually is only a problem if you're dealing with models that weren't constructed or built with certain rules in them. Like if you have a molecule, it already comes in and is spliced like automatically to have different atoms and bonds be separate. But if you have a craniotomy, it's not smart enough to know that you should slice it on whatever bone confusions.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. In the back left.
So this is really, really cool. I keep about to tell you, but what do you, how is your interaction with protected health information, and do you have to be HIPAA compliant to carry, identified patient data and things like that?
No, and that's because we're kind of a layer after that, right? Doctors aren't going to use this to diagnose, and patients are going to use this on their own data. So it's almost like, okay, does your TV need to be HIPAA compliant, right?
Okay, so you wouldn't be working with so you wouldn't be working directly with the hospital then?
That's not a market we're in right now. It's an example that works really well. Dentistry is a little bit different, but in most cases where we kind of found the market fit, it's not used directly in the diagnosis pipeline. So you go to medical school and maybe in 10 years, yes, but medical school right now, they learn how to work with 2D slices and they are not going to change that. Dentists are like, this is what I do. You're not going to make me change. Slowly, we're going to push med schools to change that, but at the moment, it's like, okay, they explain it to the patient better. They explain it to groups of people after maybe in conferences. The doctors can work together and say, okay, if you look here, we can go into the model and really dissect it in a way that's deeper than we were with the 2D images. But diagnosis is a tricky issue in that field. In pharma, it's a little better because we're pre-FDA. So when they do actually the discovery for drugs in pharma, it's all before they have to apply to FDA, and there's no HIPAA, and they just do what they want.
So coming from the auto industry, we have a lot of price data that we export in the form of CSVs.
Yeah.
Would this program be able to take those and kind of stack them on top of each other to create kind of a 3D histogram of that data?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about like plotted points, or are you talking about a model that you've actually deconstructed into CSV layers?
Plotted points, so like NVH analysis.
Yeah, so I mean, totally. We've done math, a lot of math stuff with departments of image, and kind of work towards people want to visualize kind of complex progressions. Yeah, we've done lots of different kind of base level formats, taken things in CSV and text files and parsed them. We've standardized a few things on the public version. Haven't standardized like that kind of thing yet, but I mean, it's not like it doesn't work. Sure. Yeah.
Have you looked at visualization toolkit, VTK from Kit, where I know IDV and interactive data visualization is a similar tool where they ingest hundreds of different types of 2D, 3D, fluid flow, all those sorts of files is a potentially platform to build on top of.
VTK toolkit. Let me actually push up VTK a little bit.
Yeah, we have contacts at VTK, and we do use some of their open source libraries that they work on. Problem with VTK is you really can't get anything done with them if you're a small fish. We've contacted them about doing like custom projects for custom code using their libraries in ways that we want to apply it, and they don't really talk to you unless you're throwing big money at them. But yeah, they do have a lot of great software, and we're using some of their libraries.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to talk a bit about some of the things for mentioning the kind of a process.
Yeah, so I was originally hired. Actually, I came to the first meeting here, and I was a modeler. I'm a senior over at Eastern in simulation, animation, and gaming, and I was a 3D modeler. And the funniest thing is how I got this job. I was hired as a modeler because a friend overheard Duncan talking about that they needed a 3D modeler. This was about a year ago. And I looked them up on the internet and sent over an email, went in for a interview the next day. And I've since kind of migrated towards system architecture and teaching myself, or at least trying to teach myself, full stack web development. I'm basically in charge of the web app, which does a lot of talking between Unity. And so that's been a challenge to learn how to kind of communicate between these two platforms. We're built right now on, well, we're kind of built both on AWS and on Google. We're hosted through Firebase, which is a kind of a subsidiary. It was a company that was acquired by Google, but they basically offer a lot of great services at the same price as the Google Cloud, but they're services that are geared towards app developers. So if you're looking to launch your game and you don't want to have to worry about where do I store all of my user data, where do I store my profile photos for my app, my Unity app or Unreal. Firebase takes care of you in a lot of ways. It's a really great service. We're starting to grow a little bit too big for Firebase, so some of my time these days is spent changing our systems to be more cloud agnostic if we choose to go away from that. But I've had a lot of experience learning on AWS and on Google Cloud, and yeah, it's been interesting to see how something as simple as a Unity app can have so many things going on in the background. I remember a long time ago doing some early pricing models, like how much is this costing us to have a user do X for X amount of time? And it's kind of amazing that just a little bit of time that you spend in Unity, how many database requests that is, how much bandwidth is being transmitted through our system, and looking at all of the statistics. That's the kind of stuff that I really like to learn about. But I thought that was a very interesting thing about Unity app development. Is there's so many things that are going along in the background to make these things work. So if you think that game development is just in terms of modeling assets and texturing things, it's that, but it's also so much more. One of the things that keeps me up at night is thinking like, okay, so we have a huge influx of users. Is your system ready to onload all those users? I mean, we constantly see with games these days, even look at Origin, or even look at Ubisoft. They're built on AWS, and they release a game and it goes public, and it's a huge success. Sometimes their servers go down, people can't connect.
It's always day one.
It's always day one, and that's kind of starting to get more unacceptable because of the tools and resources that are out there for you to auto-scale your infrastructure to a massive amount of users. And so it is something that I think that game developers need to take seriously early on, is how are we going to build this platform? Not for, hey, I'm going to send my app to somebody and then they can test some features. How are you going to build your features for 10,000 users? And I think that it's better. Exactly. And one of the things we're doing right now is refactoring a lot of our earlier code that we have spent years developing, because we have this great tech, but we have to get it organized in a way that teams can work together on it. It's compartmentalized so people can go into specific parts of our application and work on them more efficiently. And I can't stress enough code reviews with everybody at your company, and really taking your time to do things right.
Were you here when Joe Eckler did his presentation on agile development in the game industry?
I was not, but we use Agile at Gwydion.
So most of us, a lot of us know Joe from startup days. And what he was talking about is how processes that have not been accepted in the game development world are becoming accepted, because if you find a bug a week before you need to ship, how do you, what's the process like? You better have it nailed down before then.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to not get bogged down too by that. We've had weeks where we've gone, okay, we're going to take this week and go 100% agile. We're going to report everything, and we see our production, the time it takes for us to develop features slow way down. And so it's really kind of about determining what works best for your team, and feeling it out over a couple of weeks of how serious are we going to take this. We do a meeting every morning for about an hour. It's not a stand-up meeting like a lot of these companies do. And we call it our stand-up, sit-down meeting. We just sit down and drink coffee and talk about what we're going to do for the day. But it's really helpful for us to organize ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, how big's your team? 8 people, to my knowledge. Kind of 4 full-time, then like 2 almost full-time, but also kind of students right now, including me. And then a few students. So that's where we're at. Actually, one of the things we're going to ask today is looking to grow our team, definitely scaling up in terms of our customers, in terms of our resources to provide for a team. So looking for developers, both on the Unity end, which kind of are hard to find over at UM, specifically, and then also on back-end stuff, and a little bit on front-end stuff, and then a little bit looking for more 3D modelers and texture people like that.
Yeah, our web stack is, I'll get that question next. Our web stack is, we build our website with React.js, if anybody's familiar with that. It's what Facebook uses. It's 100% JavaScript. That's what we use for that. We use Node.js, Google Cloud Functions, Google Firebase, a little bit of AWS, Linux, all sorts of stuff. That's kind of takes care of our web and backend services. Unity side is just Unity, obviously, C Sharp. And in terms of modeling, just in case anybody's wondering, we use Substance Painter for a lot of the models that we create, as well as 3ds Max, Illustrator, Photoshop, stuff like that.
You're welcome to send in your job stuff to us. Austin's probably the best contact.
Okay, great.
But I'd also suggest you CC me on that. We'll send it over to Spark also.
Okay.
Spark's ready to job.
Great.
So.
Sure. Just leave it on the Gwydion page and page tag.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's what we had to say. I'll leave this up so you can, as pixelated as it is, maybe see some of our contact info. It's full screen. See if that works. But Gwydion.co is our site. Want to check stuff out. .com is taken by a squatter, which we will, in the coming months, kick them out of and process that. But I don't know. They want like $4,000 for it. I'm not ready to pay that. Yeah, do that.
I was kind of just out of curiosity. I was wondering how far you planning on going with like the chemistry. Are you planning on like pulling in polar forces, being able to like play with organic molecules or actually see a reaction versus reality?
Yeah. So the market we're kind of about to hit as a change of universities, kind of is the next big push up is pharma, and pharma does a bunch of interesting things. They use a bunch of old simulation software to create the rules for the interactions, right? Some of that's kind of pre-rendered, pre-processed on supercomputers, and then they look at the results. Some of that's real time, and they can kind of update based on where they move stuff. We're going to be adding a top layer on top of that, probably, working with some open source software they use, like OpenMM, to make our software be able to react and snap to these prerequisitions. You know, when you do protein docking, do a system where you can try to dock two proteins manually, and it will correct you at the end, and you can kind of estimate how well you did that, and then also use it to intuitively find new ways to dock that will fit. Working with people at Stanford and UMich to figure out what's the best way to integrate those rules. But definitely, pharma is the first place we're going to look at to do that, and then that will extend out probably to other places like more, chemical design is a different part, right? So, but similar rules will apply. It won't be such macromolecules maybe, but yeah. Yeah, so this is our website too. We have an office down Main Street. It's the basement. Make sure to share it with Gwydion right now.
Hi, David.
Yeah.
Are you shopping for capital at all, or how does your business outlook look right now?
By that you mean fundraising?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Legally, I'm not sure how much we're allowed to say about that, but yes.
You're not allowed to solicit me.
Okay.
I'm just curious because I have to be honest. The business model here sounds potentially attractive to venture capital and private equity, and I didn't know whether you pursued those at all.
We're in the Decide accelerator right now, and kind of one of the premises of Decide is to prepare you for funding. So yes, happy to also talk about that in person afterwards.
Oh sure, no, yeah.
Any other questions? Cool. I think we'll be up here afterwards, just kind of mixing around. We got business cards and stuff too. But thank you guys so much for your time.
Cool. All right. Unless I don't think we have any more announcements.
We hired another guy. He actually lost I don't know.
Specific methods of like So right now, I'm immediate hiring goals are kind of comes along with podcast as well. But there's a lot of, I could do one example. Software.
Yeah, so let me end the stream here. End the stream.